Now we're going to determine a procedure. We're going to use a procedure for determining interjudge reliability. And so we're going to look at a correlation procedure called Spearman-Rowe, which is a procedure that looks at the ranked differences between two sets of scores. How do they differ by ranks? There's a formula here. We're going to look at it in detail later. It starts out with rho, alpha gamma rho, like the Greek letter rho. It's going to later be represented by R sub S, indicating Spearman-Rowe. Rho is equal to 1 minus 6 times the sum of the differences squared over the number of individuals we're ranking times that number of individuals squared minus 1. So don't worry too much about this. We'll explain it in much greater detail later. So because the procedure Spearman-Rowe can only do 2 judges at a time, we're going to start with judge A and B. You will have to repeat this procedure for judge A and C, and again for judge B and C. So you'll wind up having to do 3 calculations. The first thing we have to do with the results is we have to change the numbers that the students got into ranks. So in other words, we simply take the highest score and give that the highest rank, and the lowest score and give that the lowest rank, and fill in the scores in between. And we do that for both sets of judges. By the way, if there was a tie, we would split the 2 numbers that they would be ranked at. So if there's a tie between 2 and 3, both scores get 2.5. If there's a tie between 1 and 2, both scores get 1.5 as a rank. So you can see 125 from our example is in fact the highest score that Judge A awarded, and 108 from Performer 5 was the lowest score Judge A scored. And in B, you can see there are some differences. They both did judge Performer number 1 as Performer number 4 as the highest performer, and but they differ in some other areas, as you can see. And so we're going to use those differences to calculate Spearman-Rowe. If there were no differences, then the interjudge reliability would be 1.00. It would be perfect, in other words. Interjudge reliability can be 0 to +1. So now I've eliminated the scores and just have their ranks. So those are the ranks for Judge A, Performer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for Judge B, Performer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we have an extra, I've added a column, which are the differences between the ranks. So the difference between what Judge A ranked Performer 1, he ranked them a 4, and Judge B ranked them a 5. The difference is a -1. So the direction is somewhat arbitrary, but let's say for the purposes of -1. The difference between Performer number 2 was ranked by Judge A as the second best, and by Judge B as the third best. The difference there is also a -1. They judged Performer 3 both as the second best performer, and Performer number 4 as the best performer. So there are no differences. And they judged Performer 5. One judged Judge A, the worst, and Judge B, the second worst. So there is a difference of 1. We've added another column, which are the differences squared. Now, you can all remember from 6th grade math that -1 squared is in fact +1. A negative number times a negative number is a positive number. So we have the differences squared, which are 1, 1, 0, 0. 0 squared is 0. And 1. That total, the sum of the differences squared, is equal to 3. And we're going to use that in our formula. So here's the formula again for calculating the Spearman rank order. It's 1 minus 6 times the sum of the differences squared over the number of individuals, in this case 5, times n squared minus 1. I've plugged some of the numbers in the second formula on this page. So remember, the sum of our differences squares was 3. So now on the top we have 6 times 3 divided by 5, the number of performers, times 5 squared minus 1. I've done some additional calculations. 6 times 3 is 18. And then 5 times 25 minus 1, that winds up to be 18 over 120. It's still 1 minus 18 over 120. If you change that to a decimal, that's going to wind up to be 1 minus 0.15. And 1 minus 0.15 equals positive 0.85. So in this case, rho, the Spearman rank order correlation, equals a positive 0.85. That's pretty good. Remember, if there's perfect agreement, 1 would be the highest you could do. So 0.85 is generally a pretty good reliability between judges. And here's a summary table at the end. You can see the correlation, the intercorrelation, the interjudge reliability between judges 1A and B was 0.85. We did calculations for judge B and C, that was 0.72, and between judge A and C, that was also 0.72. And so when we take those three scores and average them, we get 0.76 with some decimal places. And we usually report these to just 2 decimal places. So the interjudge reliability for this particular example with 3 judges and 5 performers is 0.76.